Welcome to the Bougie Black Brother Network. Good afternoon and welcome to Urban Lifestyle Cafe. I'm Michael, your Bougie Black Brother, and I'm here with my co-host Alicia.
Hello.
And today we will be reviewing a TV series. I don't know if you want to call it TV series. It's a streaming service because it's a Netflix series. I don't even know why we saying TV anymore because Netflix has just changed the game when it comes to TV shows.
It's not TV shows.
Yeah, so it's
let's say binging shows or
streaming shows.
Streaming shows, yes.
But the one we wanted to see, and because I really didn't look forward to it because I love the older show, but this just looked like a reboot of the same show, which was kind of odd. But it's Lost in Space. If y'all know, the Lost in Space was in the 60s, right?
The classic.
It was in the what? The 60s, the 1960s?
They said 60, I think it was 63 to 68. It was 3 years.
It was 1965.
Okay, 65.
To 1968.
Yeah.
Then they had a reboot of that movie, which was in 1998. Once I saw a little of it, I was kind of like, oh, okay. I remember seeing something like that, but I don't think we went and saw it. But, you know, that was just one of those like, yeah, whatever. But this one is the Netflix series. It's, I think it was 10 episodes. And, yep, it was 10 episodes. So, the first season, our thoughts of it was, let's just see what's it all about. And so, quick synopsis of if you didn't know about it. After crash landing on an alien planet, the Robinson family fight against all odds to survive and escape, but they're surrounded by hidden dangers.
Dun, 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 dun.
Dun, 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 dun. But that's just a quick synopsis of it. But after seeing it, your overall impression before we get into the details, baby. What's your overall impressions of it?
Well, the first episode was kind of like really like whack.
Yeah,
Did
I
I say
wanted to
whack?
bail on it. Yeah,
Yeah.
you said whack. I don't know who says whack anymore.
And so like, and then after you see it a couple of times, it got better.
Mm-hmm.
And it was more interesting. And then you start to see the characters kind of come out of it, a lot better. Okay. So the mother became just like, she actually is more like a man than a woman, how she was like, she's very smart. She wanted to be successful and she wanted her family to be successful. And she felt that, in the day she had a weak man that she felt she had. They had problems, whatever. The kids were awesome, except for the little boy. I thought he was just kind of I don't know why.
Yeah, they kind of made him kind of pretty weak.
Yeah. The girls was the older girl who was adopted apparently. Mm-hmm. She was a doctor at the age of 18. She was very good. She was very smart. I liked the character. Overall, it was a very good streaming. I mean, it was a very good show. It was a very good show.
So I thought it was. I'm going to go back to what you said. From when I first sat down, I think maybe I was thinking about the first TV series. Mm-hmm. But then after the first TV series, I looked at the first episode as a standalone, and it was terrible. It didn't really give you anything. The acting was really bad. The editing of how it went back and forth for what was going on was really kind of like, you knew they was going to say like, wait and see. But it was terrible because it didn't give you a lot of context on what it should have been or what was upcoming or wait, we'll give you the answer. It was kind of like, I'm just going to throw a whole bunch out and then slowly but surely we'll bring it together. And I think that made me almost bail on it. But we found that you shouldn't do that on some of these shows because it builds on it.
Right.
And the one thing I told Leisha too, which sometimes you got to wait on too, is there's different writers per episode a lot of times, and there's different directors. There was a total of 6 directors altogether. No, I'm sorry, 7 directors. So some did 3, some did 2, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. So 2 guys, Neil Marsh, who did 2, and Tim Southam did 3 episodes. And then there was a couple of people who did, just directed on their own. 2 women, Deborah Chow and Alice Thornton. That was that. Then you had the writers, which was a total of 10 writers, and the creator was Irwin Allen. And then you had Vivian Lee, who did 5 episodes, and you had Carrie Drake, who did 3 episodes, and then you had Catherine Collins, who did 2 episodes. So you had women writing the majority of this show, which was pretty cool because conceptually, I heard what Alicia said. She was acting like a man, but I don't like using that phrase because what is a man's supposed to be like? Just because a woman is strong doesn't mean she's acting like a man. But the woman Molly Parker, who played the mother, Maureen Robinson, was one of the best created characters on this whole series. That if you looked at the series, it kind of revolved around her. And it's funny, the robot. To me, it was her and the robot, and that's what it revolved around. But overall impression was very, very good. But there was just a lot of flaws in it, and then there was some things that you was kind of like, are you kidding me? So you looked at it, and because they started on I forgot the name of the ship, but the big ship, they came from Earth because the Earth was dying basically, so they was going to go to Alpha Centauri. So they created this huge spacecraft that had kind of like evaluation lottery type things that family can get on, but they had to have a whole bunch of specialties to get on. And this family, the husband, John Robinson, was a Marine,
right,
and she was a rocket scientist.
Yeah, rocket scientist.
So,
yeah,
but she was like brilliant. She was extremely brilliant.
But she was so hardcore, though.
She was all about business. She was all about science. She was all about higher education. She was all about almost perfection.
Yeah,
that's what she just had to have.
Right, the perfection part of it was just her main problem because she expected the same
from her husband,
her children, especially her son. Yeah.
Well, she made excuses for him because as he was pretty weak, and then you find out that
he was smart.
He had but he was weak. Weak doesn't mean not being smart.
Right.
So he was very intelligent, but he was weak because he couldn't get on the ship because he couldn't pass the stress test. So when things stressed him out, what happened was he would just freeze up.
Right.
But he was smart enough to do almost anything, but he could not perform under pressure. And, it showed that when he was a baby, he had some problems breathing and he had some things that he was going through. So he was like a weak baby. But funny, Taylor Russell, and she's Canadian, which was pretty cool, who played Judy. She African-American girl, but they never got into why she was adopted, who was she adopted from, what age was she adopted, or anything. But she was just like the father. She was real aggressive. She was fearless in a sense to do things. So it was really pretty cool to see how she really was. You know, she was a little more hardcore than her mom, but she was caring and everything too. So it was interesting that they never got into it, and I like that. I rather you not and say this is just how things is, instead of just saying, oh, let's go through this whole story of how this black child was brought into this family. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when they crash landed on the planet, what was the impression that you was getting from there? Because I was kind of lost because the ship crashed and it was sinking into some glaciers. So what was your thoughts of where it was going from there, even though you saw the whole thing?
Well, the thing is just that, referring back to the old version of the Lost in Space, it's like, well, that's not how it's supposed to be.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I kept saying, that's not how it's supposed to be. And then, what they did was, which I thought it was really interesting, is like, look, you got to know where they started.
Right.
Why they got to this point. How did they got to this point? And so then I had to say, okay, well, let me just watch the show instead of me critiquing it. Yeah. And so, and I started, understanding, and I like the fact that they did it that way because, when we was watching it back in the day, because, they
was on the studio,
right, and they kept repeating this over and over again. We were watching it in the 70s and maybe early 70s, yeah. And so for us, it was like because it never was like consistently going back to back.
Yeah, they kept repeating it because you saw the repeats during the summertime.
Yeah, exactly.
And then the next year you probably see the repeats of the previous year.
But they never tell you how they got there.
No, or if they did, we totally missed it.
Yeah, we definitely probably totally missed it. But overall, I totally started to understand how they did it, why they did it that way, and so to me, it's like, okay, good. I'm watching this. I like it. I like where the story's going. It was about them trying to get fuel, and then using, like you say, you love science and how they understood by using what was on the planet to get them what they needed to get to where they need to go.
Right. What I found interesting, and I'm going to ask you this question because I kind of read a couple of reviews in reference of this, is what was this show for? Was it for adults? Was it for teenagers? Was it for kids? What do you think it was for?
Oh, I really, that's a good question. I think that it would actually work with a lot of everybody.
Yep.
Yeah, because it had a lot for the kids because they had the little boy there. They had teenagers there. And then they had millennium there. Well, she's not a millennium. She was still a teenager. But still, the fact that it could relate to everybody. And it was all about science and science fiction. So it really didn't matter. That would have been perfect for what anybody can come in and watch.
Yeah, so that's what a couple of the critics was critical of, saying the show didn't know who they wanted to cater to. Which, to me, it didn't really matter. Because I agree with you. I was kind of pissed of saying, this is not what Lost in Space is about. What the hell is this going on? Because what we didn't say yet is there was other families on the planet. There was a couple of other crafts that landed on crashed or landed on the planet. Whereby Lost in Space, they was by themselves. They just ran into different people as they went from planet to planet and so on and so forth. But they was on this one planet, and everybody tried to get off because the main spaceship was actually still there up in space, even though it had damages and everything from that. It was still there, but there was different people on the planet. So it was really, really different to say, okay, so where's this going? So I had to stop and say, stop thinking about the first one. This family is lost in space. Simple as that. And they're trying to say what would happen in a modern setting, except for the original one where they was just in the studio with props and everything around it. So now technology and sets and everything can take you anywhere. So what they did was add different people on there. So the planet was different. They had creatures on the planet. There was glaciers. There were semi-deserts. There were like greenery and everything. It was really a great mix on this planet. but the planet was dying. So they had to hurry up and get off this planet as well.
Right.
So they just gave you a lot, and the thing is, when you get a TV series, they're gonna give you a lot, and they're gonna try to fit so much in order to say, here you go. So when they crash landed, the ship fell through the water and then it froze up. First thing I was critiquing on that was, if it was below zero there, they really wasn't wrapped up enough. They would either have hypothermia or frostbitten, all of that, but that didn't happen. They had their coats open, their face was exposed, and just walking around like, what the fuck? And I was like, this is bullshit. The set looked so phony, where they were with the ice and everything. You can see that it was either green screen or just some made up background, so it looked awful. So a lot of that wasn't believable. A lot of it looked really cheesy, and the emotional stuff was kind of like, yeah, whatever. And a lot throughout this movie, which I really hate too, was the music. The background music was so overly dramatic during certain times that it was kind of like, are you kidding me?
But did it really need music?
So a lot of the portions, it just didn't. It really didn't. But they wanted to, they kind of telling you, this is an emotional time. Dun, 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 dun. And you know, shit like that. And I was like, really? Do you really need to do that? We see what's going on. But anyway, what led to that is the young girl, Judy, the one that played Judy Robinson, she fell through the ice, and the ice froze up around her because she was trying to get one of the batteries out of there. So they had to find a way to get her out. And the young boy, you know, Will Robinson, not always, but he was really smart. But he just he didn't perform under stress. So he figured out that some of the areas that was glowing in the area was magnesium. And magnesium would burn through the ice in order to do that. So when they walked off to try to get the magnesium, he fell and he ran into spacecraft, right?
Right.
And then when he ran into the spacecraft, he wanted a piece of a robot kept coming after him, and then he climbed up the tree to get away from it, and then the other half of the robot was up there, and he was just sitting there, and then all of a sudden there was a fire in the forest, but he was kind of talking with the robot, and the robot really wasn't responding, and then he cut the robot down because he saw that he was dying because the piece of the other side of the robot needed to connect back together, but until it gets back together, it can't be a whole alien or robot. So anyway, so he got it back together, and then the robot said, I am dedicated to you. He didn't say it, but you know, you get that the robot is dedicated, and the only thing it could say is danger, Will Robinson.
Yeah, danger.
They don't say anything else like, hey, there's some people in the woods, or would you like coffee? It was just danger, Will Robinson. Danger. Mm-hmm. And, you know, that's all they fucking did. But anyway, he brings the robot back and helps gets his sister out of there. But what's key to that is there was flashbacks, and that was the other thing. The flashbacks was terrible during the episode 1 too, because it was dumb. It was edited so badly. Mm-hmm. But it showed that there was a creature like him in there shooting and killing people on the ship, but you don't know why. You didn't know why it was killing the people or why it was on the ship. But you find out later on is there was something on the ship that these aliens wanted. So these robots were actually aliens, and it was a ship that came there to kind of get something off of there. So you know, so when the robot portion kind of pissed me off too, because the original one was, no, the robot came with them. What the fuck is this robot alien thing come from? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I saw it on the previews and I was like, oh, so they made a robot to be with the kid. Oh, okay, now I get it. But now you find that it was an alien. So what was your thoughts on the robot though, man?
Oh wow, I was like, uniquely different kind of robot. It only said danger. It only mentioned danger because, you know, the old robot talked.
Yeah.
So that's what I was waiting for it to talk. But I didn't really. I was like, it kind of like I was trying to fill out what the robot, how the robot would fit in,
Right.
because I didn't know, because it was just like the way they set it up was that because the young boy saved him, he protected him.
Right.
And then you started to see that when Dr. Smith, the crazy woman,
Yeah, we're gonna talk about her.
yeah, but then she changed him and he protected her. So that part I was like, I didn't. And then you saw at the beginning where the robot attacked the ship. So that's why I was like, I really didn't know or what I was feeling about the robot.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So I was like just waiting to see what he was going to do.
Right.
Like I was like, okay, he's going to do this, and I was like,
he's just gonna go berserk and start fucking.
Yeah, and I was like, and I'm waiting for him to do it. I'm like, yeah, okay, what the damn robot there for? So that's the part. I mean, that was like I was just trying to fill that out.
So yeah, so I was unsure of what was gonna go on. There was another reviewer was saying that part 2 should be all about the robot. The robot perspective, or the life of the robot, and why it showed up to do what it did, which I was like, okay, I get that. But they said one thing else. They was like, why did the robot really care so much about the boy? Because even when Dr. Smith put it back together and it came back together, it still went back to the boy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it did. It sure did.
Say what?
I said it went back to the boy. Yeah, it sure did.
So they said, was the robot actually a female robot? Because it had a maternal instinct to take care of him, because it even went back to him, as opposed to just a command to take care of one. You know what I mean? Because even in the end, it came back to him. So, which made it kind of really interesting and everything. But yeah, so I thought that was an interesting concept. But so they changed Dr. Zachary Smith, to a woman, which is Parker Posey. And Parker Posey's crazy as hell. If you've seen her in a lot of other movies, she just plays in a whole bunch. She plays like crazy fucking girls.
Yeah, she does.
She's funny to me. I think she's pretty entertaining. She was on Drunk History too, so I really love that. But she's in a lot of odd movies because she's an odd type of actress, which I really, really enjoy anyway. When you have a tendency of doing stuff outside of what everybody else is doing. And so she does that really, really well. But she plays Zachary Smith. And she was such a liar and manipulator. At first I was like, man, this is obvious. Why are you listening to her? But she continued to do it. And then you see that, damn, she's just good at it. It's not obvious. But then when it came obvious, the mother was like, if you're stupid, what does that make me? Because I believed everything he was telling me. And I was like, there you go. Everybody did. Because what she did was manipulate one after the other, after the other, after the other. So, but she played a really, really good role on there as Dr. Smith. Except for being a doctor, she said she was a psychiatrist doctor.
Yeah,
she was just doing crazy shit.
And then she was a therapist, and then and then they thought she was like a doctor that knows stuff, and she didn't know. Remember, she tried to put her to work to fix the ship.
Yeah, and she was like, okay, but she convinced her to kind of not get her to do the work, even though she should have known the work.
Yeah, exactly.
So I thought that was kind of cool too. But so Molly Parker, who played Maureen Robinson, I like her anyway. And I was like, where does she play on? I really like her. I know I've seen her before. So she played on Deadwood, which was their series on HBO. I saw her on there. She played on the Stephen King movie, 1922, as the mother, and they killed her and thrown her in the well. So that was the last time I saw her, on 1922. She was in a series called Wormwood, which I really liked, about the guy that actually was murdered, but he was working with the FBI. And she played on a show called Goliath. She played on House of Cards for a while. for a couple of episodes, and she played, which I really was like, oh, that's what I know her from. She played on Broadwalk Empire, as Nucky's wife, and I was like, that's where I know her from. Oh shit, that's her. And surprisingly, she played on Dexter for about 5 episodes as well. So she showed up on a lot of different things, and I was like, wow, okay, this is pretty cool. So I kind of saw her, but she played an extraordinary role on there. The father was okay. You got to like him later. He was the macho Marine. Oh, what the hell going on? And blah. And I'm the man who's going to be in charge around here. And she was like, I am. And he was mad at that. Like, hey, just let me help. And blah blah. But that was pretty cool. But the other one that I really really liked on there was the guy who played Don West. His name is Ignacio Cereccio. He's from Argentina, so he's an Argentine guy, handsome guy. He showed up in a lot of TV series, but nothing really that kind of stood out. So when he showed up on here, he stood out on here. I really, really enjoyed him on here. He wasn't that overwhelming, and he wasn't that kind of in the background, but he was entertaining. What was your thoughts maybe on him?
With
the guy who played Don West, the mechanic.
I loved him. I was trying to figure him out too. It was like, okay, what is he going to do? And then they started bringing all that information out about him, about him being a crook.
Yeah.
You know, that was funny. That part to me was like really, really funny.
So he stood out. And Molly Parker or Maureen Robinson, she stood out. And then you had a whole lot of other people who showed up there. The other leader of the rest of the people that was there. That's his real name is Raza Joffrey. He's from England. He looked Middle Eastern, but he was good on there. But everybody else, Victor Dar. His name was Victor Dar on the movie. But everybody else was pretty supportive in there. And there was scenarios that was like really kind of outrageous. The robot kind of saved the majority of the episodes. What do you think about the creatures and stuff that was on the planet, though, Alicia?
They were creative with them creatures.
Mm-hmm. I thought so too.
I mean, and the way they did it, like for example in the cave.
Yeah, the blind bats.
Yeah, that was interesting.
And again, science. So compost. They used the compost the type of chemicals that was in the feces of these blind bats that was in a cave. They used that as fuel, so they was able to use enough of that again
with the science. Yeah. I like that fact. I like that part.
So they did a really good. They said they said one of the critics, because I keep reading it. One of the critics said it was a combination of This Is Us and The Martian, and I was like, what? That's fucking kind of crazy, because they had a good family dynamic though. Right. I think the one thing that kind of put it together that people may enjoy is the family dynamic was really, really well. You got the 2 teenage girls. You had the young brother that they kind of wanted to take care of, but knew he was pretty weak, so they kind of like, it's Will. Dad that wasn't there, he kept going out and being a Marine because she wouldn't allow him to be part of the family. So he's like, if you ain't gonna allow me to be that way. But she was like, no, but I needed you. And he was like, no, you didn't ask me. And so you saw that dynamic grow as well. So I thought that was pretty cool. And then the other characters around them, they really didn't get into them. So they didn't get into them to show any more depth from them, just them participating on trying to get off the planet.
Right. But how it ended was interesting too. The last episode.
So overall, it was the fact of them trying to find ways to get off the planet, and finally they realized that the big ship was getting ready to get the hell up out of there. They found a way of... No, this was the other thing that I was thought kind of crazy too.
What's that?
The father and the other guy, Wes, went up in a rocket, and the shit blew up. But yet it blew up, but they were still floating in space. I'm like, what the hell is that?
Yeah, that was interesting.
That
too.
was interesting, but still kind of bullshitty, like, too, and all. So, which was like really, really weird. But they were alive, and I was like, okay, this is just a space show, so go with it. So, but when they got the compost and all the ships was going back, and they only had a certain amount of time to get up there and get on the main ship so they can get away, Dr. Smith turned around and she put the robot back together, and the robot took some kind of energy device.
It looked like an egg.
Like an egg, yeah. It was like some kind of energy device egg, and it took it off the ship and brought it back with them. And they put it on the bottom of the truck, and then when they put it on the bottom of the truck, they put it back on the ship. So as they flew away, you see that thing underneath the ship. So when they was inside the ship and got into space, the gravity was there, and it kept them from flying around.
Right.
And it was like, I don't know what's causing that.
Yeah, they didn't figure that out.
They didn't figure it out, but it was this egg thing that was there. So once they was in space, you see a ship fly past them. There's a dynamic with West and the father talking to each other, and we gotta give them a signal to find us. But that was just a fill-in for them to kind of find them. But on the ship, Parker Posey or Dr. Smith was like, we're not saving your fucking husband. We're gonna dock with the whatever place it is. I don't know why I don't remember that. But so when the ship flew by, two of the goddamn the robots came back.
Yeah, came back. One was the one that was with
the main one.
Yep. And
because
then,
remember, she blew him out of the back end of the door,
right?
Because Dr. Smith said kill all of them, so he was trying to kill them,
right?
And the little boy was like, you don't want to kill me, you know me, and he was ready to just smash the shit out of him. And then then the mom did like a Ripley Scott from Aliens,
yes,
and knocked the shit out of the robot and
into
then,
the space,
and he flew off into space and everything. But he came back with another robot,
yes,
just
because
to get
they had the egg, just to get the egg.
And we'll call it an egg. I don't know what the hell it is,
that's what it looked like. I'm sorry,
orb, whatever. If you want to call it an orb, you can call it that too. But they came back, and then they just wanted to kill everybody. So they shot the boy, and he was ready to kill him again. And then the robot was like, nah, this shit ain't going to happen. Then it attacked the other robot, and then they flew off into space. So that just told you on one end, if they was in space before, if they got a ship that's out there, that means they're probably back on that ship.
Yeah.
But so they're not dead.
Remember, they ran out of fuel. At the end.
So because they ran out of fuel,
and the major big ship that had all the other families on there was going to say, well, don't stay right there where you at, we'll come to you.
Mm-hmm.
And then what happened, I think the egg
start activating for some reason.
Yep, it sure did.
So it was connecting to, for some reason, the egg started activating. It started connecting to the ship, and it opened up like a wormhole, and the big ship was ready to bring them in and say, well, we'll come to you and you can come to us. But in the meantime, that egg made the ship turn a certain way, and then all of a sudden it just shot through a wormhole and wind up in an area where the robot said danger, because he drew it on the ground, and he was like, I don't know what the hell you're doing there, robot. You should be talking a little more English than Danger Will Robinson.
Right.
But he took a picture of it, and then he showed the family. And then when he showed the family, they was like, what's this? And it was like, it's Danger. So now it truly goes into a lost in space, because now they're nowhere. They don't know where the hell they are. They're lost somewhere with no one else around them other than this area that the robot told them is a problem.
Well, then they got. I mean, so now the new story is they are lost in space.
Yeah, I said that.
Why I'm saying this is because the first part of the story just basically tells you that they were all a part of somebody. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, they were all in a group. They were all a family. There was more than one spaceship and stuff like that.
Yeah, so it kind of led you to, oh, this is going to be different. It's going to be a whole bunch of people that's lost in space. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. There's going to be a lot more than just one ship that's lost in space. But by the time the series ended, it was them lost in space by themselves.
Right.
Oh, and the ship is called the Resolute.
Right.
That was the name of it.
So that was interesting, because that to me was like, okay, so now I know from the first part of the show, which we didn't quite see from the old part, is that they were all in one area. They all were together, and then that's how they became lost in space. Now, I would assume that the second part would be them trying to get back.
Yeah, or trying to get to where everyone else is supposed to go.
But
Alpha Centauri.
Right, but so that's not going to happen. This, like you said, this is all going to be about the robot.
So it should. I don't know if it will, because, you know, sometimes they go a different direction. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. They could just want to continue on doing, just the family dynamic.
Right.
But you really don't have to, because they're away from the Resolute and everybody else. It's just a family, and they're in the universe where the robot is. Yeah. So it should be about the robot, because that's what the robot told them about.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why I was like, okay, that's why I'm saying, like, they lost in space now.
Right.
Really, 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 they are lost in space now.
So overall, I think it's worthy to be watched. There's a little something for everybody. Put it
Yeah. I can tell you right now, my grandbabies love sci-fi movies, and they love karate movies or anything that has kicking and cartoon. I mean, not cartoons, but superhero stuff. And I think that, and now they haven't. Did they watch some of this with us?
Yeah, they enjoyed it.
Yeah, so we know that they liked it. They didn't get to see the whole thing, so that means that over the weekend when Papa's at work, I'll have to get them to see the whole thing. I mean, and it was a good series to watch. I really enjoyed it.
So again, I mean, being honest about it, I didn't like it at first. I was like, what is this? They really destroyed the concept of Lost in Space. But I didn't realize what they were doing was recreating it. But like Leisha said, if you didn't know about the beginning of Lost in Space, here it is. This is how they got lost in space. They didn't get lost in space by gives you the concept like the Fantastic Four. Fantastic Four went up in there and they got caught into this solar storm and they got all powers. This was, we're going somewhere. We was headed somewhere and now we got lost. But this says we was going somewhere. Everything was going fine. But now that we got attacked, it threw everything off. We got back together. But because the Robinson family was involved with this robot and the dynamics of the robot caused them to be lost in space. And I just thought the way they wrote the characters and the strong female characters, you can tell that there was a lot of female writing involved. Mm-hmm. And you can tell through the actions and the way the women interact, because the one that played Parker Posey, she was an asshole, but she was very convincing. You know what I mean? The young girl that played Judy, who was a doctor, she was very impressive as well. And you had a lot of impressive women on the cast, as opposed to the men who was honestly very subpar compared to the women. The only other one was the guy who played Wes, and he was just entertaining. He was smart, but he was entertaining. Mm-hmm. But all the women really stood out in here. It was almost like this was a women-led show, which I like because it just says you don't have to be a man to know it all. And she showed that. She was strong. She was smart. She came up with the ideas. The one guy thought he was going to be the leader, but he didn't know what the fuck he was doing, or he was making bad choices. But she was making scientific choices. She was making things. She created a lot of this stuff, and she was straight. And I was like, wow. And she didn't back off like, well, I don't want to take the credit for this. She was like, fuck no. This is what I did.
Right.
But that object it landed on Earth and was called the Christmas star because it was like a meteor that fell to Earth. But they didn't realize that they took that and made that power the actual Resolute. But Maureen Robinson didn't know that until she kind of put everything together, and it's like, oh, there's a power source up in this bitch that's kind of really running things. But she didn't really know it until when she got into the alien ship.
Right.
She saw that device on there. But overall, I think this was really a good show, worthy of seeing where it goes the next season. And critics liked it.
Right.
They wasn't very critical of it.
Right.
The people who was critical was just like what I said. The acting was subpar all the way around. The better acting was the ones that we kind of highlighted, but overall, every supportive actor was kind of like regular. The first, I say the first two, or maybe it was just the first episode. They could have thrown that away and redid that one.
Yeah.
They could have redid that.
Yeah.
That made you not want to see it.
Yeah, it was really awful.
It was very
I think
awful.
that it's directing. It was definitely the directing.
Yeah. So that kind of told you something in itself. But then it started getting better. And the writing, because I was looking who was directing and who was writing each time. Because that's just what I do. And then I was like, wow, so this one was a really good one. Okay, this was written by this female, but directed by this man. Oh, this one was directed by this woman. And then it went from there. And a lot of it wound up being really, really good. So I enjoyed it. But overall, that's what you got for bed?
Yep.
So, interesting. Netflix, Lost in Space reboot series. Not just a movie, but a new series worthy of seeing. So check us out on Urban Lifestyle Cafe podcast downloads, and give us on iTunes. Give us a like, at least a like. If you like it, just like it. You don't have to put a comment on it. I know a lot of people's like, I ain't got time for no comments. Just if you like it, just click. Give us a quick like and say, hey, I like this. It'll give us the opportunity of moving up and getting some better quality movies. And we got an opportunity to start to see a couple of more too, but we always like to see what Netflix is doing with the TV series. There's a couple of them that I still want to see too, but yeah, we'll be checking those out as well. But hit us up on IG as well as Twitter on Bougie Black Bro, and find BLK Woman, find Black Woman on IG as well as Twitter. Follow us on Facebook if you didn't delete it.
You're so silly.
If you didn't delete it, follow us on Bougie Black Brother Network or Urban Lifestyle Cafe on Facebook. And then you can see us on YouTube. So if you don't have time to find a podcast download, I do upload those to YouTube as well under the Bougie Black Brother Network. And I sort them out in different, I got them sorted out in different folders as well. So bookmarks. So check us out, and we'll see you next week. This is our TV series as opposed to movies, and you can see our movie series coming up as well, because there's a couple coming. Not really until May, but the Infinity Wars is coming, and we got to see that. But other than that, any last words, Boo?
No, man, it was a great show.
It was a very good show. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next Wednesday on Urban Lifestyle Cafe. Later.
Bye.